Sources at Recode say that Google has hired Rick Osterloh, former president of Motorola, to head the new unified hardware team. Joining us to talk about why this is so important is Mark Bergen, reporter at Recode. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So what can you tell us about Osterloh's new hardware division?
Sure. I think you can think of it as Google is and has been historically like a series of fiefdoms. And this is an attempt to tie the various fiefdoms that put together hardware products together under one roof and one leader for the first time ever.
So they've never had a
hardware first attempt.
They've never had a hardware division before?
They've had loose groupings that you could roughly call hardware. I think there were some attempts around Android. There were attempts around Chrome, and then there was with Glass. From my understanding, the Glass team was also trying to unite a lot of the hardware stuff under Glass and then the vision of wearable products, and we all kind of know what happened there.
It wasn't good.
Yeah, I think this is like the first time he's taking on all those products as well as Chromecast and OnHub, which is our wireless router. And those were even, OnHub was actually built out of a separate division that was a separate Alphabet company, and that's moved back into Google, which is all terribly confusing. But from my, there were a bunch of teams working on various projects and the different directions, which is something that Google historically has done, is almost a strategic thing, right? You kind of pair groups against each other, and then they'll innovate. But now I think they're trying to have a much more uniform experience.
Do you think that any of this is kind of, at least to some degree, a reaction from kind of their experience with, well, just taking Nest, for example. Nest has had a decent amount of kind of rocky news over the past couple of months as far as, they had great ambitions for what the division was going to do. Doesn't necessarily seem like it's delivering. Internally, Google is kind of, having issues with Nest and, kind of the perception of Nest and everything like that. Is this kind of an indication that Google is losing faith possibly in that division and needs to kind of put it in the hands of somebody else to kind of bring it up to its potential?
Yeah, I think when Nest was initially required, there was a sense that Tony Fadell, the CEO, would kind of take over a bunch of hardware projects inside Google proper. I think that's clearly not been the case. Nest is moved in a different direction for a variety of reasons around software. I think they're kind of positioning themselves as like, we're the thoughtful home company. Mm-hmm. And they've always been trying to keep arm's length from Google for reasons, that Google wants, but also Nest wants, and certainly with the Alphabet, they are operating as two different companies. It will be interesting to see. There's an expectation that Google has this real strong need to compete with Amazon and Alexa, and the Echo device, which sort of came out of nowhere and is basically on Google's home turf, right? Alexa Echo is a search device. Mm-hmm. And so it's something, and maybe this will come out of Rick's new group. It certainly hasn't come out of Nest yet.
So you haven't heard about a product that's in the works? You don't have any details about a product in the works? Secret details you could tell us about it?
Secret details?
Like an Echo-like product from Google?
I do think that we reported this before. I think the Nest team and Tony Fadell had attempted to put out something competing with Echo, and some of the reservations they had were that consumers might not want Google listening in on their home. Mm-hmm. And Google kind of, I think, does more. They're more siloed, especially on data, than we think. It's interesting. Maybe consumers are more willing to have Amazon listening on your home than Google.
Or maybe with the success of Amazon and Echo, if that continues along, then that's kind of rewriting the expectation of what consumers want. And actually, consumers are okay with it because they're buying these devices in droves. Now, Motorola hardware was never better, in my opinion anyways, than it was when Google owned it and when Rick was kind of heading up the effort there. Do you think this would kind of be a return to that type of glory, that kind of perception from a public sense, with Rick kind of handling all of the hardware that Google has?
Maybe. I don't necessarily get any indication that they're trying to build up a massive hardware business, right? I think it's still sort of directional, right? The hardware is the means to the end, which is for Google services, content, and machine learning, the software search. I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of the hunch. That there is some rumors out there, and there have been some reports that with Nexus they have bigger ambitions, and I think maybe there's people on the Nexus team that want tighter control around the phones. Certainly, there's a lot of Android that is frustrated with like crappy Android experiences.
Sure.
And so they've always used Nexus as sort of like a tentpole. This is what we wish Android would look like. This could be an indication that they maybe have more directives, right? Like the next Nexus devices will have even more hardware specifications that they want everyone else that builds Android to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who he's reporting to?
He's reporting to Sundar.
Right to the man.
So he's right to the man himself. Yeah, he's an SVP. They didn't give him a CEO title, although there are plenty of CEOs in the alphabet. So I think I just counted recently, and there's 9. So.
That's a lot.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance he could be CEO.
What also kind of stood out to me is that, it was kind of a big loss to ATAP, losing Regina Duggan, I think like a week or two ago. And it seems like Rick Osterloh is kind of filling those shoes as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I think my understanding was that ATAP and Regina was more of an R&D organization. I don't think Rick's considered more of he's a product engineer, or he's a project engineering lead. He ships product and he ships hardware. So this could be interpreted as maybe Google is steering away, Google proper, from R&D, or moving R&D into a different part of the company. Certainly, like the R&D, I guess, is now a lot of that is with artificial intelligence. And DeepMind is their AI R&D that's just working on solving research and solving intelligence there. So I don't know as much about the ATAP as I should. I think parts of that have moved into the VR division in Google. There's still a big question mark about if there are future virtual reality devices that come out of Google. Is that going to come out of Rick's organization, or is that going to come out of the VR team? I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder as far as ATAP. ATAP has a lot of projects that you hear about, but you don't necessarily see the results of. Tango is probably the most visible one, and based on the Google I/O calendar, we're going to hear a lot about Tango. So maybe what this says is some of those projects inside ATAP that were a little bit more experimental might actually finally see the light of day. Maybe we'll see Project Ara, maybe we'll see Tango in more of a productized release sort of way, and Rick could head that. That would be really exciting, I think.
Right. I think Tango was their partnership with Lenovo, which would make sense. We haven't seen anything about the wearable pants that they announced last year.
Yep. Was that Soli? No, that was Jacquard. That's right. Yeah. Project Jacquard.
That's nice. Yeah.
You never know. Soon our pants could be technology. You never know.
Well, yeah. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Mark is a reporter at Recode, MH Bergen on Twitter, and you wrote an excellent piece, a follow-up piece on the Wade's stalking piece that Kashmir Hill posted in Fusion.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a great piece. If anyone's interested in that, check that out. Thanks so much, Mark.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.